Good afternoon, guys. It's working, bringing you a quick update on Bitcoin. Hope you guys are having a wonderful afternoon. Before I get started, as always, a massive thank you to everyone that has sent me tips. Never feel obligated, guys, but it certainly does feel great when I do get the tips, guys. It lets me know I'm doing something right, and I want you guys to know how much I do appreciate you, and I appreciate this community. Again, it just lets me know that I'm doing something right. So truly, a massive thank you. Much gratitude. If you ever do send me a tip, by all means, I'd like to thank you personally on the video, on my next video. So let me know in the comment section or send me a private message on Facebook or Twitter, and I will, I'll certainly send you a massive thank you on the next video. And for those of you that send tips and you choose to remain anonymous, I appreciate that too. Just want you to know that I do see them though, and I don't take that for granted at all. Massive thank you. Right now, I want to send a massive thank you to Nikolai K. Thank you very much, Nikolai, for the tip. You're very generous, man. Truly appreciate you being here. And a massive thank you. Also, a massive thank you to Kevin Robert. Again, very generous, man. Just thank you both very much. Again, I never ever want to take that for granted, and I want you guys to know how appreciated that you are. Again, I never started this channel as a way to make money. It's not why we're here. Crypto's been good to me, and I just want to, if I can help other people, other people do well, then that's the goal. That's the goal, and hopefully we can all learn from each other. But just again, a massive thank you. I really am liking the community that we have here. We're small, but it's a great community. All right, looking on to Bitcoin. Bitcoin to the U.S. dollar, 4-hour chart on Coinbase. Last time we spoke, Bitcoin had broken down below about 10,400. I told you if that did happen, we were very likely coming down to 10,000. In fact, I think right at the end of my last video, we broke that area and we did come down and test 10,000. Now remember, 10,000, I told you that would be a decent area to scalp. Why did I say that? Because looking over at CMEs, obviously it was a decent support, but looking over at CMEs, guys, as you guys know, just to recap, we had that massive gap between about 10,050 and 10,600. Of course, that gap has now been filled, but anytime you see a gap like that, guys, that denotes areas, a gap on CMEs, just like major support and major areas of resistance. What is a major support and a major area of resistance? It's just an area where there are a ton of buy and or sell orders, right? Not and or, and buy or sell orders, I should say, not and. So yeah, a major area of resistance is an area of sell orders, a major area of support is an area of buy orders. That's all it is. And when you see these gaps on CMEs, that's what it is denoting, a very likely area of in this case, looking down at 8,500 of buy orders. Up this area between 10,600 and 10,000 was an area of buy orders, and that's why we got a nice little bounce off that zone. And you see, as we came down, we got quite a few bounces off that zone. So you had multiple opportunities to enter off of that. Now, would I have played it after the first or second? Probably. Actually, after the first or second, I may have. Why? Because the first pass we came down, we did not even close the gap. So that was telling me that there were quite a few buy orders still left in there. And of course, we came back down and did close the gap and had a nice little bounce off that zone. Regardless, the gap is now closed. Next area I'm turning my attention to is 8,500 as far as closing gaps on CMEs. But I can't ignore the fact that we do have this gap up here now between 11,500 and 12,080 that, again, will eventually get filled. The question is time. The question is when. And that was a very, I don't ever like to make definitive statements like that. So, could those gaps not be filled? Yes, that is a real possibility. Those gaps don't have to be filled. It's just that probability-wise says that they very likely will get filled. More 85-90% probability that they very likely will get filled if we're looking at traditional market analysis. Now, as far as gaps on Bitcoin, I have not run the numbers. I couldn't tell you what the numbers are. This is a very new market. But just traditionally, yes, those gaps are going to get filled. More often than not. All right, so let's look at where we are now. We broke down below 10,400. I no longer think 10,400 is a relevant zone, which is why I've kind of taken it off here. 10,000 is still relevant. We bounced just below that. Of course, got bought right back up. But the next area that I'm looking at majorly is 9,400. This area right here. That was the last area of consolidation before Bitcoin went parabolic, and that is the last major area of support that we have not come down and tested. That we has not yet been tested. And if I pointed this out before, but just to quickly come back and summarize, if we go from our prior swing low to our swing high of $13,850, we can see what pardon me, we can see that coming down, we respected the 382, nice little bounce off that zone coming back down here. This came back down, tested the 50 very, very nicely. And of course, the next major area is going to be the 618 fib level, that golden ratio, which just so happens to coincidentally, or as I like to say, not so coincidentally, overlaps perfectly with that 9400 visual support. And of course, that golden pocket between the 618 and the 65 fib level, again, almost perfectly lining up with that last area of consolidation before Bitcoin went parabolic there. Now, zooming back in on the 4-hour, if we pull our fib extension, and I've got to give credit to Jay, he pointed this out in the comment section, and I apologize for not pointing this out yesterday. I was using it on my own charts, but I didn't point it out to you guys. I was in more of a hurry yesterday. I was rushing out shopping in the afternoon after my video with the family, and anyway, I apologize for not pointing this out. But Jay is absolutely correct. If we use our fib extension here, we can see that on the way back down, Bitcoin respected the 382, Bitcoin bounced perfectly off of the 50, Bitcoin bounced very, very nicely right inside the golden pocket on the 618, and of course the next major area below the 618 would be the 786, and we literally almost to the dollar had a perfect bounce right off of the 786 there. So this is a very, very relevant zone. And again, coincidentally or not so coincidentally, if this area does break down, what's the next major fib level? Will be the 8865, and again, that overlaps very, very close with that $9,400 potential area of support. Now, if I briefly throw on volume, you can see that this bounce here is to be respected. We did break up here on a decent amount of volume. Nothing great, but certainly something that gets my attention here. So I'm going to watch this area. You can very clearly see if I just zoom in here, guys, we can see coming back in here, looking at June 22nd, what it does. This area looks very like a very, very nice support. Coming back down and testing that support right here, nice little bounce on June the 27th, coming back down and testing that exact same support here on the end of June 30th and July 1st, again bouncing off that zone. Then we broke that area, coming back up again. What do we see? We can see that's where we're finding some resistance right now. Now let's wait and see if we can decisively break above that zone, but that zone lies somewhere right in there, which is right around 10,600, you know, depending, there's a little bit of leeway, 10,600, 10,000, I would even call it a little bit higher than that, maybe 10,630-ish, somewhere thereabouts, but pardon me. But there's no question that that's a relevant zone. And we can see that price is pushing that area right now. Let's see if we can get a decisive break above it. But if we do get a 4-hour open and close, not just open, but an open and close above 10,600, I do think it wants to come up and test at least, I'd say at least 10,900, if not 11,000. And of course, that'll be a major test for Bitcoin. If we can get above that, I do think it wants to come up and test about 11,500. And that's really going to be the pivot point for me. If we can get a 4-hour open and close above 11,500, I will think at that point we're coming back up and testing very likely this $12,500 area. Very, very, very likely. Doesn't mean it has to happen. I do believe if we get a decisive break above that 11.5, I do think 12.5 quickly becomes on the table, and it very likely would quickly shoot up there. And then we can talk about potential short-term bottoming out and reversing and possible continuation back to the upside. Checking the daily RSI showing just like we did that break. I discussed this yesterday, that break in early February of 2019. Once we broke up above this zone, this about 46.5 has been acting as a decent area of support. I would expect it to act as a decent area of support again if we do come back down and test this zone. And it's not until we do break this area that I start to get concerned on the daily. So if we take out about 46.5 on the daily RSI, guys, that's when I do think we're going to be possibly coming down lower. That's when I do think, you know, that mid to lower 7,000 becomes a real possibility, if not a probability. But until that does happen, guys, I'm just viewing this as a very, very healthy correction. And even if that does happen, I would still view this as a healthy correction, just a rather deep correction. And you know, that's when you start to get, that's when you start to wonder, you know, are all the bears right? You know, is this just a bear market rally and then continuing to the downside? We'll have to wait and see. But I don't think so. I'm certainly not in that camp, but I always want you to know what to look for just in case, just in case they are right. This is crypto, and we all know that the only thing consistent about cryptocurrency is it consistently surprises. All right, zooming all the way out on the weekly here, guys. Weekly we've talked about this numerous times. Weekly was showing potential bearish divergence. That has been confirmed now. We are coming back down slightly. Not very substantial bearish divergence, though. Also saw it on the MACD histogram there. Not very substantial, but nonetheless, it was there, and it did end up coming through. Looking at the signal line, MACD line, looking like they want to start to curl over a little bit here. We'll have to wait and see kind of how that plays out. Histogram certainly starting to tick down, but nothing too severe there yet. Coming back to the CME chart, guys, I do think if we are to continue to the upside here, I will look at 11,500 as potentially a major area of resistance. Remember, just like this was a major area of support, this gap here acted as a decent area of support. We got a nice bounce there. This prior gap between 10,000 and 10,600. This will very likely act as a major area of resistance. So again, that denotes an area of very likely sell orders. So let's wait and see how that plays out. But if we do get up here, guys, and we can break into this zone, this is why I say a break above 11,500 decisively would be an extremely bullish sign, and would very likely come up and test this $12,000 area. Very likely. We'll have to wait and see. But if we can just maintain above 11,500, even consolidate within this zone, again, I do think that'd be an extremely bullish sign. To the downside, we have a clear gap at 8,500. I do eventually think this gap is going to get filled, and I wouldn't mind seeing it happen on this correction. I know some people are going to hate me for saying that, but I truly would, and I truly think if we could fill this gap, it would be extremely healthy for Bitcoin. And there is a lot of confluence with some indicators and that $8,500 area. If we look at the weekly chart here, we zoom all the way out and we take this bottom from 3,150, we go to the top of 13,800. What do we see? We can see that we got a perfect hit right there off of the 382 as of right now. If this does break down, if we do break down below that 382, what's the next major fib level? Next major fib level would be down here at the 50. Where is the 50? Literally right at 8,500. So again, a lot of confluence, a lot of between indicators if this were to break down. Now again, it doesn't mean it has to happen right now. Certainly we could come much higher and not fill this gap until much later. And by much later, it could be next week, could be next month, could be 2 years from now. Just probability says that eventually the gap will get filled. And personally, I'd like it to get filled sooner rather than later. But again, we'll have to wait and see how this plays out. And again, it doesn't mean it has to get filled. Certainly doesn't mean it has to get filled. This is not a traditional market. This is not a market with decades of history. This is a very new market, and oftentimes new markets don't follow the same probabilities and traditions that a traditional market would. Not to sound redundant there. Other indications that 8,500 is a very relevant zone. Looking at the monthly chart here, guys, all the way out on the monthly chart, we can see what was back in the bear market, what was the last swing high before price broke down on the monthly chart. It was this green candle here in July of 2018, correct? So if I look at that green candle there and I take the top, where is that top? Right there at 8,500. Fast forward to May of 2019. Where did this candle find its resistance in May of 2019? 8,500. The following month, June of 2019, where did this candle find its support? 8,500. So 8,500 was an area of resistance, flipped over into support. Again, guys, this would suggest that at some point we may come back down and test this and get a nice little bounce off of that zone. Doesn't mean it has to happen, just means that, again, we're getting a lot of confluence with that. And also something that I find extremely interesting here, a lot of people have said that because this thing might be a bear market rally, and they're using to justify that as by saying that we can see that on the way up here it didn't respect any of these major areas of resistance, like it's 6,000 and on, and on and on and on, all the way up there. It just blew through areas of very likely resistance, 10,000, etc. And yes, you're right, it did blow through that, but I would argue that, in the past, anytime Bitcoin has started going parabolic and reversed course, it blew through a lot of areas of resistance, number one. Number two, I would say the most important area of resistance that it did end up respecting would be the 618. So if I come up here, and I pointed this out numerous times, that if I go swing high down to that swing low, right inside that golden pocket, between the 618 and the 65, that's exactly where we got rejected. literally right inside that golden pocket. So again, I would say that it is respecting the prior areas of resistance, at least the major area, the prior major area of resistance. And if we come over here and we look at the monthly close in December and the monthly open of January, it literally came up almost to the dollar of that close. I mean, it could not be more perfect. So again, I would have to slightly disagree with you. Now, again, that does not mean that you're wrong. Certainly, we could be in a bear market rally. I just don't think so. I think that we're seeing far too much volume. All right, zooming back into the 4-hour here, guys. Looking at it, does look like Bitcoin is kind of putting in a little bit of a bullish flag pattern there. You know, it certainly doesn't meet the requirements of a descending. Sorry, guys, stand by one. All right, I apologize, guys. Somebody just walked in the room there. All right, so where was I? Yeah, so this does not meet the requirement of a falling wedge. That being said, we are seeing a similar thing to a falling wedge, and I could just draw this pattern out here and say, all right, you know, if I'm just looking for, you know, some kind of a bullish, some kind of a bullish pattern here on the chart. You know, could I make an argument that this is, you know, well, it technically wouldn't be classified as a falling wedge? Or are we getting, you know, a falling wedge basically is just a bullish pattern where you're seeing, you know, sellers panicking and constantly lowering their sell prices, wanting to get out, thinking that, oh my gosh, we're going slower, we're going lower, or excuse me, we're going lower, but I want to get out, but I don't want to, I want to try to sell as high as I can. They keep changing their mind, and buyers are doing a similar thing. Well, we're going lower, but I want to make sure I get in. I want to make sure I catch the bottom. So, you know, buyers are not willing to put their prices down way low, but then of course they get scared, and so they drop it again, drop it again, drop it again, drop it again, drop it again. And of course, eventually these two buyers and sellers meet at an apex and price just breaks out. So this is something that we're seeing where, even though, again, I would not really, if this was a falling wedge, it'd be one of the sloppiest ones ever. It doesn't meet the criteria for a falling wedge. That being said, the principle is still there. We certainly does look like it's getting squeezed here within a tighter and tighter range. And of course, that would possibly denote a breakout there. And if we did break up above what looks like to me, this, I don't even like calling this a trend line because we've only really been tested once. Hasn't even been tested a third time here. But nonetheless, if it does break up above here, and if we get a decisive break above about that 600, then I'm gonna be a little more conservative and call that about 600, 10,650. If we get a open and close on the 4-hour above 10,650, this thing really has a chance to come up and test at least 11,000, at least 9,000, or excuse me, at least 10,900, but I would say more closer to probably 11,000, and I'll be very curious to see how price reacts off of that point. Looking at the weekly chart, guys, checking our moving averages, exponential moving averages, we can see, guys, that we're below the upper Bollinger Band here on the weekly chart, but we have yet to come down and even test the 8-period EMA on the weekly here. So, again, the bulls are putting up a hell of a fight right now, guys. The bulls are certainly, don't count them out just yet. Again, doesn't mean that we can't come back down here much lower, but I'm just saying don't count this out, but don't count the bulls out yet until we do take out the 8-week EMA. I would say that the bulls are very, very much still in this fight, and even if we did take that out, the bulls are going to be in this fight until we do take out about the 21-period EMA, and of course that would bring us down close to about 7,000-ish, somewhere thereabouts. But really, I'm not too concerned until we do take out the 8-week EMA there. Let's go ahead and check the daily Bollinger Band starting to constrict here a little bit. We have yet to break decisively below the 21-day EMA. We didn't even close below it. So again, the bulls are putting up a hell of a fight. We are seeing the 8-day EMA and the 21 start to converge there a little bit. If the 8 crosses below the 21, that would be a very bearish sign. But again, we're not there yet. No, that's certainly not in the cards as of right now. Possibly in the next week, but I wouldn't say not in the cards quite yet. And yeah, 55. I mean, this is no reason to panic just yet, guys. This is a very, very healthy looking correction as of right now. Checking the 4-hour. Yeah, 4-hour. I mean, the 4-hour looks the most bearish, as you would expect. Smaller time frames. We do have the 8 dropping below the 55. We now have the 21 dropping below the 55 as well. Again, that is a bearish setup, but again, the bottom Bollinger Band has not even been stretched out in the least. It's finding support right on top of that bottom Bollinger Band. Keeps getting pushed up, and of course we were finding resistance right on top of the or excuse me, right below the. Oh, sorry about that. Right below the 8-period EMA, and we just broke above it here. So yeah, let's that again. This is the bulls are putting up a hell of a fight. And I am struggling to pick a side. Yes, my bias was down to that $9,400 zone, and I would still have to say until we get a decisive break above 10,650, my bias is still down to about 9,400. But I will say it has been impressive the fight the bulls are putting up. Coming up, checking daily volume. Daily volume sitting at about 31.1 billion. Nice little uptick in volume. So again, we do have some some decent volume behind this, guys. So this move is to be respected. But again, the more volume you have, the more price can move very substantially in one direction or the other fairly quickly. So again, guys, and especially given the fact that it does look like we're in a bit of a consolidation pattern here, just be very careful with this. Be very careful with this. Again, I know it's tempting. I know everyone's wanting to jump in. I know the FOMO is kicking in, and I also know that the FUD is kicking in the other direction, guys. You got people pulling you in both directions. Anytime you do that, and anytime you're second guessing yourself constantly, and you don't know what to do, don't do anything. The best thing you can do sometimes is to just not do anything, sit back, relax, and no matter what happens here, you will have so much opportunity in this market going forward that the best thing that you can do is protect the money that you do have. If you do take these positions, take very small positions, wait for confirmation, etc., etc. And again, I don't mean to sound like I'm lecturing you. I only say that out of experience, out of having lost a ton of money. I'm embarrassed to say how much money that I've lost in the past when I was learning to trade. I truly am. And you don't have to make those same mistakes. In most of those things, when I lost money, I knew better. I just either got greedy or I refused to let go of a bad position. So guys, again, just be very careful, be very cautious, and in my opinion, wait for confirmation. But again, I'm not a financial advisor. This is never financial advice. How am I playing this? I'm playing this very conservatively. If we do get an open and close above this, I'm going to be watching this trend line very closely, but above about $10,650, an open and close above that zone, I would be looking, as I said, for a rise to at least 10,900-ish, if not 11,000. I'll have to reevaluate at that point. Below this zone, pardon me, if we do take out and get an breakdown below about $9,950, this trend line here that we've had for quite some time on a second pass, I would expect a decisive break below that zone. I would expect that drop down to about 9,400 if and when we do come back down for that second pass, and we'll have to wait and see kind of how that plays out. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap things there, guys. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, please let me know in the comment section below. I am going to do comments today, guys, but I'm going to do it on a separate video. I'm going to try to start uploading these on separate videos, especially when the analysis goes a little bit longer. So watch for that second video if you do want me to answer some of your questions, and if you want to hear the answers to some of your questions, I'm going to follow up with a second video with nothing but answers to your questions, possible some analysis on some various altcoins. So take care, guys. Till next time, this is Working, signing out.